Emailing and texting. We're looking at the beginning of Chapter 9. So here are your guided lecture notes. Pull them out, start making notes, and make sure you can answer all these questions and feel very comfortable with the parts of an email and how to write an email and correct a poor email. So, email and the internet and texting and whatnot it has a relatively short history. So the first online message occurred in 1969. I know that seems like a long time ago to you. It seems less long to me. I was born in 1974. So here we go. We have all these milestones that happen, and actually the history of technology in some ways is the history of Generation X, Millennials, and Generation Z. So many people describe Generation X as the computer generation. That's, this is when things happened. Email happened, Amazon, web pages, computers themselves, keyboarding. And then we have the growth of the laptop, and then cell phones. So millennials in some ways are divided as a generation in their experiences with technology, and they are divided by these rapid expansions of laptops and then the access to and use of cell phones. In the same way, Generation Z is often described as the touchscreen generation. So their sense of immediacy, their interaction with technology is based on these early interactions with cell phones and screens. And yet all of these standards were set 50 years ago. In 1971, we have the ampersand symbol. And then in 1973, we have that email from subject and date that is so critical to our experience now. With email came a lot of great changes, but we have spam, blurred life and work boundaries, and email is work rather than part of your core duties. So your job becomes about monitoring and responding to the email stream. So what should you do and not do in your email? Well, try not to do what Artemis Sabera did here in the first one of these messages, where it says important with multiple exclamation points. You don't even need one. No exclamation points. If you really want something to be seen as important, in most email systems, you can mark something high importance, okay? You do that. Don't use exclamation points, particularly not multiple ones. Do not choose vague words, so question is not something you would use. Even if you have a question, choose a word or words about the question, then the only punctuation I really am happy about in a subject line would be a question mark, maybe a dash to separate things. But, show the reader that there is a question by putting a question mark there. That helps the reader know, okay, I'm going to respond to a question. Don't write a sentence. I don't know what I'm supposed to do is not helpful. I don't want to see a sentence. No one wants to see a sentence. I've actually had people send me an entire email message where they wrote the message in the subject line. It was horrible. Don't do that. And please do not use only lowercase. People's brains don't process lowercase the same way that they process words that are capitalized. So capitalize like you would a book title, okay? That will help people read faster and easier. It's easier on the eyes. Do eliminate filler words. So get rid of all the filler words and use keywords in your title. Be clear and specific. So human resources certification available. Hooray! I know what it's all about. It could be HR certification, but if there's going to be any confusion, human resources. Use logical keywords. So think about the most important part of that email and what they need to do, how they're going to read the email. And capitalize for skimming. So see here it says adjustment to schedule. If I glance at this, I know it's a question about an adjustment to schedule. Can there be an adjustment to schedule? If I glance at the budget meeting agenda, Tuesday 9 a.m., I know attached to that email is probably the budget meeting agenda for the meeting Tuesday at 9 a.m. If I am at home and I've forgotten what time the meeting is or when it is, I can check my email and there in the subject line is the answer to my question. So that is supremely useful for its audience. So let's do a little activity. For the following message, I want you to create a bad subject line in your mind and then a good subject line. So here's the message. Please review the attached report about sales during the expo show last week. Let's set up a meeting by April 14th to discuss this in person. I would prefer to meet between 2 to 4:30 p.m. in the conference room. J. Marsh. Okay, so what's a bad subject line? Probably attached report, or even sales, update, meeting. All of these would be vague. So what is the most important thing here? They want to set up an April 14th meeting, right? So why don't we have a subject line that addresses that? It could have a question mark, and it should be capitalized appropriately. So think about what the audience needs to know and do. So for salutations, here are some examples. I tend to go with your first email more formally and use dear. Why? Because it's really safe. There are other ways to do it. You can say greetings, not with the exclamation point. You can say hello. It's a little more informal, but I like for a first email to someone else using dear. Now, an email reply might be a little more casual, and then as the email thread, that means the replies back and forth, get longer and longer, there is a tendency to use fewer salutations because everyone knows who's talking to whom. Now, if there is a situation in which you have multiple people who are part of the thread, you might want to become a little more clear about who you're talking to in terms of different things. So in that case, I might tighten up my formality and explain, okay, we have 7 people in this email. I'm, and list the people. I'm going to give an overview of our situation and then list the action items and ask for responses, okay? That, you might tighten up and become more rigid in that situation just because you need to monitor what's going on. This can also happen in, these days it's going to be in Microsoft Teams thread or a Slack thread, and you'll want to follow up with that. So a buffer. Can you use a buffer in a direct message as well as an indirect message? Yes, and you can use multiple buffers in indirect and direct messages. Why? Because I think buffers smooth the way. So if you're at all uncomfortable with the other person and don't know what they want, and there are people who don't want any buffer at all, but I'm going to tell you, I'm one of the people who likes a little buffer. A compliment, a statement of appreciation, a reminder of acquaintance or something you've promised to do, a greeting or a fact, that's going to help smooth the way and remind the other person of who you are, what you want, your relationship, and it's going to help them feel more warmly towards you. So whether it's direct or indirect, you may want to have some buffer before you get to your main points. In the body, remember to apply all the rules. The 10 C's, always apply. Use short sentences, particularly for the things that you definitely want people to remember, the most important action items, and know your audience. If your audience gets confused with multiple points, then make one point. And I will urge you, if you have multiple projects, send an email for each project so that the email threads are separated by project. That is so much better than having one email that addresses multiple things. Don't do that. If someone likes short messages, send short messages and be able to convey your points in a still polite but brief way. You can still cover all the bases and not use a lot of words or long sentences. For your closing, remember to close pleasantly. How you end depends on your type of message. So think about what you want to get out of this and what the other person needs to do. So you may want to summarize the message and include a call to action. So if there's something the other person needs to do, when do they need to do it by? What's the deadline? And why? And say that in a positive way so that they understand, you're not pressing them with a deadline for no reason. There is a reason for this deadline. In your sign-off, think carefully about what you want to convey. See you later is going to pull up a lot of questions on your email program. XOXO, hugs and kisses. Why would you do that? No hugs, no emoticons, no sign off, no name only. Have something professional. Now, I've seen people, particularly men in their 50s and 60s, sometimes even 40s, who use cheers if they're European. It always suggests to me that they're coming out of a pub or something. It feels a little weird. You don't have to be incredibly unique in your sign off. But I like a sign off if I'm going to see the person, hope to see you soon, or, stay safe is popular right now because of COVID-19. So think about what you're saying, and don't be too familiar. You should always have an email block. So when you sign off, you will not have a signature. You don't need any cursive anywhere in your emails. Cursive and signing your name in font is for letters. Don't have it in emails, but do have your contact information in a way that looks professional. That's really important, and it's something you want to make sure you do. Okay, if you're wondering what a block looks like, these are some examples. These are examples that I would not use. What are the problems? The one on the left, oh my gosh, he thinks he's a designer. What is going on there? It's too many colors. Okay, and the one on the right, there is so much there that it's become meaningless, right? It's not helpful. So, particularly if we have an email thread, I'm bored and annoyed. And I don't ever want to see a quote of the day ever in someone's email block. I'm not happy with that. All right. So let's look at an actual email back and forth and think about tone. How would you write an email to turn down an internship offer? Now remember, once you accept an offer, you've accepted it. And if you send that email, it can appear elsewhere. So the next several slides are from a real email exchange, and these are still used in textbooks 15 years later. So this person is popular. All right. So here's Diana Abdallah, and she agreed to work for William Corman, and at the last minute, before she began, she sent this email. Dear Attorney Corman, at this time, I'm writing to inform you that I will not be accepting your offer. My goodness, did y'all notice that there were no buffers? This is a very direct email, and it's giving bad news. After careful consideration, I've come to the conclusion that the pay you are offering would neither fulfill me nor support the lifestyle I'm living in light of the work I would be doing for you. I've decided instead to work for myself and reap 100% of the benefits that I sow. Thank you for the interviews. Diana L. Abdallah, Esquire, which is how you sign your name if you've earned a law degree. Okay, here comes Mr. Corman's response. Diana, given that you had 2 interviews, were offered and accepted the job, indeed you had a definite start date, I am surprised that you chose an email and a 9:30 p.m. voicemail message to convey this information to me. It smacks of immaturity and is quite unprofessional. Indeed, I did rely upon your acceptance by ordering stationery and business cards with your name, reformatting a computer, and setting up both internal and external emails for you here at the office. While I do not quarrel with your reasoning, I'm extremely disappointed in the way this played out. I sincerely wish you the best of luck in your future endeavors. Do you think she made a mistake? I think so. She responded. A real lawyer would have put the contract into writing and not exercised any such reliance until he did so. Again, thank you. She said a real lawyer. That's not good. And there's no salutation, and she doesn't close with her name and a block. Here's his response. Thank you for the refresher course on contracts. This is not a bar exam question. You need to realize that this is a very small legal community, especially the criminal defense bar. Do you really want to start pissing off more experienced lawyers at this early stage of your career? I think Diana made a mistake. What does she say in response? Blah, blah, blah. Okay, I know you can parse this, do a close reading, and explain all the errors that you see here. It certainly escalated, didn't it? Um, and it's used in textbooks. Wow, Diana Esquire, she made some errors. So, can your emails haunt you? Well, as Diana discovered, they can. And as this man, Ken Lay, who is no longer with us, discovered, they can. His emails were used in an accounting scandal, and they came into court. So here is one, here is another. If you don't know about Ken Lay and the Enron scandal, then you should look it up. You will discover that, in fact, there used to be five, the big five public accounting firms, and that fifth public accounting firm was named, that's right, Arthur Andersen. So if you count 4 down on the table of contents here, you will notice that Arthur Andersen had a relationship with Enron and was part of one of the biggest financial crimes known, and Arthur Andersen folded. And that's why we have the big 4. So if you have not seen The Smartest Guys in the Room, you should. It is a story of the Enron scandal, and it will give you a sense of things that have happened that are a big deal, that have affected your life, even though you didn't know it. Part of the lesson here is that any and all messages can be used against you in a court of law. So for texting and online communication, those same rules apply. When you use company messaging or chat systems, when you use your own phone, when you use company email. And actually you are bound to use company messaging systems, and they have to store them for a certain period of time. So know that even though it's harder to get those text messages via subpoena when you need them in court, other people can get them too, so even your personal cell phone is not exempt. Choose your recipients carefully when you work for a company, when you have a profession and a career that's really valuable to you. Go in person when things are murky. So we talked about face-to-face and how it matters. Well, it does matter. People can still video things and record things, but but sometimes you can get a better sense of what's going on. And remember that everything you do can create a permanent record. So when you text at work, be careful. Do people want to be texted? Do they give you a number that accepts text? So don't text, regularly without that being part of the company culture. If you do text someone, identify yourself on your first communication, or if you're communicating infrequently. They might delete your text just to save space. Avoid sending any confidential, sensitive, or secret information via text. Proofread carefully, so really think about what your message looks like, because you still want to look professional even if you are texting, so no text speak. And understand urgency. Is this really urgent that you would text? So in this case, as you can tell from if you've read this little text message, an employee sent a message accidentally to Valerie about Valerie. The employee is actually on a beach sipping pina coladas and has said that she is sick and has essentially created a record with that. So she doesn't have a job anymore, I don't think. If you are texting and messaging with recruiters, that's something that happens, and it's going to happen more frequently. You're going to probably get messages from recruiters on LinkedIn. And I will tell you that one of the cool things about LinkedIn is that if you look at, I still want you to apply, but if you look at a job ad on LinkedIn, recruiters and HR can see who is looking at the jobs, and they can actually check out your profile. And I've had students who just looked at openings on LinkedIn and received messages from recruiters. For example, I had a student who looked at a Google internship in California like 4 years ago, and he was contacted by Google, and they said, the HR person said, "Hey, I noticed that you were looking at our job ad, and you have hardware experience. We're looking for someone with hardware experience. Would you like to interview?" And he ended up getting a job and going to California and spending a summer there. So it played a big role in his whole career path. It's a kind of neat thing. Now remember, these people are texting and messaging on LinkedIn. Make sure you're connected, make sure everything looks good and really highlights the aspects that are strengths for you. And what do you need to know? Well, you need to respond promptly. Proofread everything. So look at my previous bullet. Instead of response promptly, respond promptly. And remember, everything is an interview. So that text message is part of an interview. They are evaluating whether you respond like someone who should work with their company. So in review, think about your guided lecture notes. Can you answer all these questions? Take a look at this bad example email. Should you use email in the subject line of an email? No. Should you capitalize the Y and U? Yes. Dear Mr. Khan, a colon is used. Is that okay? It is if you're trying to be really formal, so it is all right. You could also, it's more common to use a comma. Thank you for the interview today. It was interesting to learn about company. Ugh, that's a problem. I recommend that you go to a sushi restaurant. You will like it. All right. So everything after about is a problem. And then we don't even have a last name for Marilyn. Ugh. What is the biggest problem? Probably about company. And then second biggest problem is that lack of transition. So I don't understand. Did they talk about sushi? It looks like it needs another sentence to orient the reader, because if he interviewed 6 people, he's probably going to look at this response and go, ugh. Here's another bad example. The subject line says opportunity. Is that vague? Yes. I'm just going to clarify that for you. It's vague. Dear Stan, he's using this man's first name. Maybe they used it in the interview. Think about it. Thank you again for the opportunity to interview for the internship. I have had another internship offer. What is your timeline? All the best, Rob. Uh-oh. I would probably express more interest in the internship and why you would think about the timeline. Maybe give them, maybe ask if they would have a timeline within a week, because you are the kind of person who wants to respond to the other opportunity, but you would love this opportunity. You're going to have to work on that one. What is the biggest problem? I think he's too abrupt. So is this better? This version is better. So here we have Marilyn, doesn't have a last name, but this looks better. There aren't any obvious errors. The subject line is better. It has that little dash, but interview thank you, that tells me what this is about. This one has the interview thank you, but it also talks about, it was interesting to learn about HSC and how your role has changed. Okay, I get a little sense of their conversation. I'm excited about the summer internship opportunity. Enjoy your weekend, Marilyn. That sounds more professional. I would like to see Marilyn use her last name and maybe her phone number there, but this is pretty good. So here are some buffer examples. If I asked you to identify what type of buffer these were, could you do that? All right, get ready for the test. Think about the body of an email. When would you use numbered lists, and when would you use bullets? Why is this a numbered list? Is it because of time order? Yeah, you start, you arrive, you sign in, you collect the packet. All right. You would use bullets for equivalent priorities or goals, or unnumbered lists of similar things. Now, I'm going to leave you with the final question. Is texting acceptable in business? What do you think? Somewhat is probably a good answer. Be able to identify when you might expect a text or when not. Thanks a lot.